niggas is capping. These niggas is wellin'. See the snakes in the fry. I just pray for my life. See the snakes in the rain. Ain't nobody is safe. I can't tell no lies. I would rather die. I can't tell no lies. I can't fake my life. Bravo rule boy. Hop in the booth in the stool boy. Telling the truth boy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Balance. We are now at episode 30, which is amazing to me, and we're getting up there in episode count. And again, I couldn't do this without any of you because you all listen week after week, and you encourage your friends to listen, you spread the word, and I appreciate it all so much. And you know, later this month will mark the year anniversary of the launch of the show. And it's amazing to me because when I started this a year ago, I didn't know that I would still be continuing it, you know, a year later with the same passion, the same intensity, and just learning and growing and just falling more in love with what I do. So again, thank you all, and just continue to spread the word, tell your friends, get them to like, subscribe, retweet, all those things. So anyway, I thought that we would start this week's episode 30 again, with a kind of throwback of the traditional format in terms of music. So I thought that I would bring back music trivia instead of just listing songs. So we're going to do trivia from, you know, the 80s, the 90s, and then more recent. And so the first song, be ready, because I want you to be able to tell me the artist's name and the name of the song. Okay, here are the lyrics. When I'm looking off the edge, I preach my gutted. I can't help but ignore it. I'm climbing up the walls because all the shit I hear is boring. All the shit I do is boring. All these record labels boring. I don't trust these record labels. I'm torn. All these people on the planet working 9 to 5 just to stay alive. Okay, so those are the lyrics. You can rewind, slow it down, whatever you need to do, but listen and tweet me on Twitter with my Twitter page, the_balance_pod. Tell me the name of the song and the artist. So we're moving on to the next one. The next one says, so let me give you something to think about. Inundate your mind with intentions to turn you out. Can't forget the focus on the picture in front of me. You as clear as DVD on digital TV screens. Satisfy my appetite with something spectacular. Check your vernacular, and then I give back to you. With diamond-like precision, insatiable is what I envision. Okay, so then there'll be one more, but we'll do that towards the end of the show. So those are the first two. All right, so now we're going to kind of jump in a little bit and talk about some kind of hot topics. So I recently started watching LeBron's show, The Shop, and I actually like it. And a brief aside, I'm actually starting to become a LeBron stan, but we'll get back to that later. So anyways, there was a kind of topic that I saw bleed over into social media, and it was the idea of when you get on, do you owe your family anything? And I thought it was an interesting topic, and I know Anthony Davis said that his family didn't expect anything. But, you know, 2 Chainz's mom expected a new car, and, you know, LeBron's mom, he got her a freshly built house based upon her vision. And for me personally, do I think you owe someone, particularly your family, when you get on? Let's be clear. When you decide to have kids, you do decide to do the world for them. You do decide to give them the basic needs and more. Like, choosing to become a parent means so much, and you don't necessarily, you don't applaud a fish for swimming. But at the same time, I think that there's a certain level of parenthood when they give a certain level of sacrifice or they do a certain level of work for you that you should give back to them. You should give them the world. You know, when they're out here fighting for you, battles that just when they take it above and beyond as a parent, I do think that you owe them. Now, how much do you owe them? Do you necessarily owe them a brand new car that they randomly text you that they want and that they're going to get that day? I don't know. That's not for me to say. And I don't know, I'm praying I have that money, but I don't right now. But I do think that you do owe your parents something if they go above and beyond. Now, when it comes to other people in your family, like siblings and this, that, and the third, I think you can do for your siblings. I think you can, but I think that's where it stops. You know, you can do it for your grandparents as well, a little bit. But, you know, aunts, uncles, unless that aunt or uncle was like a parent to you and they did more than a typical aunt or uncle is expected to do, then you don't necessarily owe them all the world. If you want to do for them, cool. But, you know, But then it kind of drifts into, so, well, what is the max? Like, what is the limits of what I should do? And I think the main thing is to not make decisions that will set you back, that will hinder you. And I know a lot of, even millennial people, they do a lot for their family, and they're caring in their families, and they're helping pay, for a brother or a mother or whatever, helping them financially. And, that's the main advice I have, or the main point that I have, is do not do anything that will set you back. Don't give them all the riches in the world that you get yourself in financial trouble, because that's going to come back on you and you only. Okay, so I think that's the main thing about it. But another thing that I found interesting from The Shop was the idea of Jamie Foxx talking about a party that he threw back in the 90s. And he talked about how someone called him on the phone and was like, hey, you got federal agents at your party. And it just made me think of the whole hip hop police thing. Like, how they infiltrate so many different things. Like, they, like, police and FBI and all this, that, and the third, they infiltrated, the Black Panther Party. So it's just interesting. And I mean, I believe some of that same stuff is still going on today. But yeah, so that just kind of wraps up that little bit of kind of hot topics. So we're going to move on into kind of more of the heavier things. And so we're going to talk about what's going on in China. So it's 2019 and we still have concentration camps. So that's what's going on in China. So just to give you a little bit of background and feedback of what's going on. So in Luopu County specifically, their number one vocational skills and training center is anything but. So it's surrounded by concrete walls, barbed wire, surveillance cameras, police patrols, and guards with batons. But they're supposed to be a training center. Yeah, okay. So anyway, there's a banner high above the building that says Safeguard Ethnic Unity. And that right there gives you kind of a hint at the real purpose of the facility. So anyway, it's an internment camps for Muslims, particularly the Uyghurs. And they're being held against their will and without trial for months or even years. So basically the problem is the density. There's just way too many. And China's not feeling it. And it's just crazy to me that that's where we are in 2019, that we're still having concentration camps. People say that, from who live in China, they say that if you go in that place, you're never coming back out. So anyway, in December, the UN asked for access to the building because they received credible reports that 1.1 million guys, 1.1 million Uyghurs and Kazakhs and other ethnic minorities were being detained and held there. Again, against their will, months, years, family members are trying to see them. And it's just crazy to me. Like, here we are. So, in similar news, we're going to turn back to the United States and what's going on here. So, Yasmin Juarez, her daughter Marley, unfortunately died of respiratory infections after being released from the immigration custody, federal immigration, to put it that way. And so the mom is seeking $40 million in damages from Elroy, Arizona. And they employed CoreCivic, the second largest private prison company in the United States, to run the center, despite their documented history of subpar medical treatment and detainee abuse. Okay. And so her daughter, which was under 2 years old, she had a fever of 104. She had constant diarrhea and she was vomiting. And so she would take her child to the medical facility and she would have to wait all day to see a doctor. And just when the doctor would come, she would be turned away and told that she needed to make a new appointment. And then when they were finally seen by doctors, her daughter was only given cursory examinations. And this was just going on for weeks, specifically 2 weeks. And so they said, okay, eventually, well, she has, more severe symptoms. So we'll get her to see a doctor who could properly treat her. Again, never happens. They were discharged from the detainment center without ever getting proper treatment. And unfortunately, as I said earlier, the daughter died. And it's just crazy to me, the inhumane conditions that go on now. And it can kind of disrupt that sense of hope. Because it's like, look at where have we come, Like, have we achieved as much as we think that we have, But we got to keep up the hope. So we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back. And we're going to talk a little bit about travel and some other things. All right, we're back. And so to kick the last section of the show off, we're going to go ahead and give the last round of music trivia. So here are the lyrics. No sleep last night, been dreaming of you. Please hold me tight, 'cause I can't help the way that I feel. I just can't help the way that I feel. Baby, you make my love come down. You make it come all the way down. So those are the lyrics. So be sure to tweet me the name of the song and the name of the artist. And remember, at the very beginning of the show, there were 2 other songs mentioned. So hopefully you guys can guess all of the different songs. And remember, there's one from the 80s, one from the 90s, and one that's more recent and contemporary. So anyway, I kind of introduced this segment last week, and I wanted to continue it because I know a lot of my listeners, they're book readers or they want to get back into reading. And so I know a lot also are seeking, Black authors. And I found an article that lists 50. And so just kind of each week, I'm going to mention a little bit about each author and their book, ones that I saw on the list that seemed a little bit interesting to me. So for this week, we're going to start with The Poet X, and the author is Elizabeth Acevedo. The second book is called Between the World and Me, and I'm hoping I do not butcher her name, but I believe it's Ta-Nehisi Coates, and her name is spelled T-A-N-E-H-I-S-I, and then Coates, C-O-A-T-E-S. And then the last one, and I kind of meant to mention this one last week, but it was just so much going on. It was such an interesting episode that I let it slip my mind. And so this book is called Freshwater, and I know that I will probably butcher the pronunciation, and I'm not about that life. So I'm going to go ahead and spell the author's name. So A-K-W-A-E-K-E, that's the first name. The last name is spelled E-M-E-Z-I. And so since I wanted to mention this one last week, I want to give you a little bit more information about this one. So the Toronto Star describes it as a stunning and disorienting story about a broken woman trying to overcome the pain of her human life while straddling the other side. It interweaves Igbo religious myth with a story of overcoming mental illness, floating between the corporeal and the metaphysical. So Freshwater is unlike any novel I've ever read. The shape-shifting perspective is radical and innovative, twisting the narrative voices like the bones of a python. So that just seemed interesting enough to me. So I definitely want to mention that this week. And also, I'm going to read the books myself that I'm mentioning you. So I hope you guys found this section helpful, and we'll move on to the next. As we've discussed on the show numerous times, therapy is not affordable for everyone. And I've seen some tweets on Twitter that discuss like, hey, if you go to therapy, like, can you share some things that you've learned? And not just directed towards me, but to others. And so I thought that this week I would kind of do that and just share some things that I've learned in therapy. And so one thing that really helps me is with the anxiety attacks. So I was having extremely bad anxiety. And so my therapist, she recommended kind of an exercise about the 5 senses. And it makes sense because your brain cannot focus on your anxiety if it's focusing on other things. So to help with an anxiety attack, you look around and you find 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And so this is sort of a grounding technique that just kind of helps you take control of your mind a little bit. And I've tried it and it's very helpful. And one thing that she also stressed that I want to mention is that you cannot just use this tool or other tools in the heat of the moment, because sometimes your mind won't think to use the tools. So you have to practice all the techniques that you learn in therapy or any grounding techniques that you can find online or whatever your source, you have to practice them ahead of time. Like, not saying every day like a school lesson, but you need to practice them so that when the time comes and you are having an anxiety attack or whatever it may be, that your mind automatically thinks to do this. So that's one thing that was mentioned in therapy that I thought would be helpful. So another thing, and it's always echoing in my head, is to leverage your resources. It's hard to have everything you need to do everything you want, but leverage the resources that you do have. And that's just one line that I have that I think is very important. Also, there's an acronym called THINK, and she really stresses this one upon me. And so THINK, the T stands for true. Is it true? Do you have any evidence of it? Like, for example, if you think that, let's say, I don't know, that you're super socially awkward, can you think of 5 examples of it? Like, where's the evidence? You always have to think. If there's a negative thought about yourself in your head, you have to think, is it true? What evidence do you have? Where is this evidence coming from? Is it coming from you? Has anyone actually said it to you? Things like that. The next is H, which is helpful. It's pretty self-explanatory. Is this helpful? Is what I'm thinking going to help me in any way progress, advance in any shape or fashion, financially, physically, spiritually, emotionally, any of that? The I, inspiring. Again, self-explanatory. Is this inspiring? Is this going to be helpful? N, necessary. Is this necessary? Do I need to think this? And the last one is kind. Is it kind? Because you have to be kind to yourself. And one thing we discuss in therapy, and one thing that I discuss on my own, is would you want someone in your life, whether it's a friend, a family member, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you have, whatever relationship it is, boss, what have you, would you want them to talk to you the way that you talk to you? So you always have to keep that in mind. You got to talk better to yourself. And I'm so guilty of saying all kinds of nasty stuff to myself, but I'm working on it and I want you to work on it too. So to continue on the path of healing and advice, so as you all know, I'm very spiritual and I've spoken on it on several episodes, and on my guest episode that was kind of early on in the show, we had several guests, and one of them kind of spoke on spirituality from her vantage point, her beliefs, and she took the time to kind of explain, you know, all the different principles and different things like that. And I want to give her a shout out again, just for being her and for taking the time to do that. So I thought that I would kind of speak on the chakras. And for me, affirmations are huge, and not just in terms of chakras and the balance and that type of thing, but just in general, affirmations help me push through and feel better about myself. And so some affirmations I get from Selfish Bay. It's an app, and I'm so sad right now that it's not popping up on my phone as a notification. But anyways, that's besides the point. So yeah, Selfish Bay is a really good app for affirmations, and I'm about to give you some that relate to specific chakras. So for your heart chakra, here are some affirmations. I love, I am kind, I am loved, I am cherished, I am needed, I forgive, I am compassionate, I accept myself, and I accept others. So the heart chakra, it flows with love for ourselves, others, and the world, and it's where our spirit resides. And it's the most important chakra to keep clear and flowing with ease. And so here's another chakra and some more affirmations for the throat. I speak my truth, my voice matters, I express myself, I speak with kindness, I speak with love, my voice is strong, my voice is clear, my voice is steady, I have an opinion, I have the words I need, and I take up for myself. And so as you can kind of guess, this chakra is about your ability to express yourself fully, to speak and live your truth. It's about freedom and acceptance for yourself and for others. And so I'll give you 2 more chakras and affirmations, and I want to save some for next week, and there's 7 total. So anyway, so we're going to move to the crown chakra, and the mantra for it: I am, I trust, I am at ease, I am at peace, I am enlightened, I know, I am connected, I understand, I am light, I am divine. And so this is our connection to the divine source of energy. It flows with spiritual energy and becomes clearer as we become more in tune with the universe and our spirituality. And so let's see, which one do I want to do next? I feel we're going to do the solar plexus for today. So this one has the mantras of I am great, I am confident, I can do anything, I can accomplish anything, I have a purpose, I am capable, I do, I am ambitious, I am intelligent, and I am powerful. So this is our source of confidence, self-esteem, and energy. It is a source of all of our success in our lives and helps us accomplish our dreams. So in wrapping up the show today, I kind of want to talk about my capstone project because it kind of relates to the mission of my podcast, which is, advocacy and addressing real world issues and real world social topics that matter. And so on Twitter, there's a lot of discussion about, growing up in the hood and how that affects someone's mental health, and some people say they feel like you can truly have PTSD from some of the stuff that you've lived and seen in the hood. And I decided I wanted to do my master's research project on that. I want to discuss what is it like growing up in the hood? What are the experiences? Can it affect your mental health that way? And some of the research that I've compiled thus far compares it to living in a war zone. And PTSD is absolutely possible. And, it was kind of hammered home for me when I was reading Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, and she talked about how these people she met in Chicago, how they all known somebody who had been shot. Like she talked about one person they knew, a friend who had been shot, and their brother had got shot at the same time, and that was the second time the brother had been shot, and during that second time he was in a wheelchair from the first shooting. So it just all hammered home for me, and I believe that is something that needs more discussion in the public focus. It needs in the public dialogue, all of that. And I want to develop and devote more research to it. And so I'm asking for your help. So anyone out there listening, if you know someone who's grown up in the hood, or if you do, please DM me on Twitter or what have you. I would love to interview you and just hear about your experiences. I promise that it's confidential and is used for school purposes. So you have no fear, and we can always use a pseudonym, anything that you want to do. So yeah, thank you all for listening so much, and we'll see you next week.